This worksheet is for rearranging linear equations. This should be section 2.8. And I copied it incorrectly, so sorry about that. It's out of order, but we're gonna start this worksheet in order. We're gonna start with step 1, rearranging the letters. So we're gonna start at the bottom part right here. You can fold it back this way. And what we're doing here is that we're rearranging the letters just like if the rest of the letters were numbers. So let me give you this example. Right here, what it's saying is that they want you to pretend that this is the only letter. This one is the only letter. What does that mean? That means that this would be like a number. To get rid of the number, let me go ahead and draw the line. You would subtract b to both sides. That gives you a all by itself. And that's what you want. You want to solve for a. But then how do you write s minus b? You can't combine those. Those are not the same letters, so you're going to keep them separate. And you keep them just like you see them. S minus b. And I purposely wrote it off to the side instead of right underneath. Because they don't have the same letter, we cannot put them together. All right, next one. The first thing that I want you to understand is that L and W are being multiplied together. So if this is really like my only letter, then we know that we have to divide both sides by what's in front of it. In this case, this is L. And you did it on purpose to cancel out the L in front of the W. So what is your answer? Your answer will be the area divided by the length, or A, capital A divided by L, and it's equal to W. And that's what you wanted. You wanted a solve for W, and W is by itself. Next is that we're trying to say that M is the only letter. The other ones will have values. So this is being divided to my variable, so I have to multiply to both sides. I'm going to rewrite it just so it's neater for you. So we're going to multiply by v to both sides, so we can cancel the v by underneath it. And then we write it just VD. We don't need those parentheses to indicate multiplication. So this topic is very useful. You're going to use this in physics, in some of your science classes like chemistry. These are very, very important, very useful. So for example, this one is density is equal to mass divided by volume. So this is a science topic. And that if you're given density and volume, you can figure out the mass. And so they're very useful and have a lot of application. Let's take a look at this one. It says translating the sentences into algebraic literal equations and solving for the given variable. So the first thing that it wants us to do is write an equation for it. Then solve for the variable that they're telling us. We've seen this one before. The perimeter, P, of a rectangle is found by twice. And remember the sum of puts parentheses, L and W. And that's where this came from. Then it says solve for W. So what you're looking at is that this is the only variable. I'm going to show you the way that I think is easiest, and then I'm going to show you the way that I have taught you to solve these type of problems before. So the easiest thing that I do, so I'm going to put easy. And I do a little curvy L so it doesn't look like a 1. is that since I'm trying to solve for the W, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And that's going to get rid of this multiplication of 2. So P divided by 2 is equal to, now L plus W. Since we got rid of the multiplication at the beginning, we no longer need those parentheses. Now we just need to subtract L from both sides. And I like to write it off to the side because you can't combine these. So I write from the top, bottom, from the top to the bottom. So I had P divided by 2 minus L is equal to W. Okay, we're going to make a squiggle, and this is the way that I usually teach you to solve these. So we're going to rewrite P is equal to 2L plus W. And what I had taught you is to do the distributive property first. That means multiply 2 times L and then 2 times W. P is equal to 2L plus 2W. Because when you multiply 2 times L, it's 2L. When you multiply 2 and W, it's 2W. Remember, we're trying to solve for this one. So I have to subtract 2L from both sides. And you did it on purpose to get rid of this. Now you have P minus 2L is equal to 2W. And the reason that I wanted to show you this is because of what it means. This is important. We're going to be doing this when we have to solve for equations of lines, so this is very important. When we divide by 2, like this, to both sides, to get rid of the 2, now we have is equal to W. So your answer could be P minus 2L divided by 2. So why does it look different from this one? Let me move it over here because I run out of space. What happens is that you can divide P by 2 and 2L by 2. And it's still equal to W. This is a very important concept. The whole numerator is divided by 2. That means the P was divided by 2 and the 2L was divided by 2. We're going to need this when we're solving equations of lines. So I wanted to introduce it now. This P divided by 2 doesn't simplify, but look, 2 divided by 2 does simplify, so we still have minus L is equal to W. Okay, so what would get you full credit? If you use this method, which I find easier, this would get you full credit. If you do it the way that I have been teaching you to solve equations, this would be good enough. But I just wanted to show you how they were the same answer. Okay, now we gotta find 2. And 2 is on the wrong side, so if you'll find multi-step rearranging. And this is when we have more than one step to solve for the variable. But remember, what we're solving for is the one that we're looking for. So we got this. The B is what we're looking for. That means that this plus 12C is sort of like a number, so we still have to just subtract 12C. Subtract 12C. It's going to eliminate this. Now we have 5B is equal to Q minus 12C. Remember, they don't go together, so we can't put them together. This has a different letter than this one. And then we're going to divide by 5. And remember what I told you, it means the same thing as dividing everything by 5. And since we need this to solve equations, that's why we're going to do it this way. B is equal to Q divided by 5. And then minus, and this doesn't simplify anymore, so we leave it as 12/5 C. You can put it as a numerator or on the side, and it's still the same value. All right. This one we're going to solve for C. We have it's dividing by Z. The easiest thing to do is multiply by C to both sides. And so I'm going to rewrite it so it's easier to tell that we're multiplying by Z to both sides. We canceled it out on purpose. X minus C is equal to YZ. Remember, when we have multiplication, we don't need parentheses anymore, so you can just place the letters together. We're looking for the C. That means we'll have to subtract X. Why are we subtracting X? Well, the X was positive, so we need to subtract it. And I'm going to write it all the way over here because it doesn't go together with the rest of them. It's not multiplication. So we have negative C is equal to YZ minus X. Now we're going to divide by negative 1. And remember, that's the same thing as dividing everything by negative 1. C is equal to a negative YZ, and a negative divided by a negative makes a positive, so plus X. We're going to go up here and take a look at what we have. We have rearranging each equation to solve for a given variable, and this one is wanting to solve for R. So again, we have to do the addition and subtraction first. They don't go together, so we have to write them separately, M plus B. That still leaves 4R by itself. And here, what they do is divide it by 4 to both sides like this. But remember, why we're separating is because we know what we need to do later, and that's why I want you to separate the numerator. Okay, now for 3. So for 3, what we're wanting to do is write the equation and then solve it. The volume, V, is equals 1/3. And then the product of means parentheses. The area of the base and the height. So how do we get the area of the base and the height? We multiply those together. Okay, and what they want us to solve for is the H. I want to use this rule because it's important that sometimes we could use the reciprocal. When we did the property of numbers, what we called it was the multiplicative inverse, the multiplication inverse. So what does that mean? That means that 1/3 can have multiplication of 3/1. And then I'm going to put BH. It's the same thing as multiplying by 3 to both sides because we're dividing by 3 to both sides. So I'm going to put V, and I'm going to multiply by 3/1. This is the multiplicative inverse. To remind you what it does, it simplifies this, so it cancels it out, leaving us with BH. So this can also be simplified and just leave us 3V. I wanted you to remember this because in your homework assignment, there's several fractions. And if you just multiply by the inverse, it's going to be easier for you to do. Even though on this equation, it'd probably be easier to understand it if we're just multiplying by 3 to both sides. All right, we still haven't solved for H. That means I have to divide because this indicates multiplication. Divide by B. That gives your final answer as 3V divided by B is equal to H. These are not easy concepts. If you have any questions, please let me know and try to make it to tutorials. The area of a trapezoid is, so we could use A for area of a trapezoid is equals 1/2 times the height. So the height, because multiplication doesn't need a indication when you have it like this. And then the sum indicates parentheses of B1 plus B2. Close those parentheses. We're solving for B1. Okay, so what I want you to notice is that we could do both multiplying by 2 and dividing by h. We're going to multiply by 2 to both sides. Multiplying by 2 gives you the same answer. But how we're going to write it as the multiplicative inverse. I need to remind you on how to do that because of your homework. So what I'm saying is it's 2/1 is the multiplicative inverse of 1/2. And then we're going to write the rest. And write A, and we're going to multiply it by 2/1. I'm going to remind you 2/1 is 2. We are multiplying by 2 to both sides. I'm just calling it the multiplicative inverse to help you with your homework. 2A is what we have here. These simplified out, so now we just have h, B1 plus B2. And don't forget what you're trying to solve for. You're trying to solve for B1. So we still have to divide by this h. Now we have 2a divided by h is equal to B1 plus B2. This is also where students get confused because they leave the parentheses and are not sure what to do. We don't need them anymore. Don't forget what you're trying to solve for is B1, so we have to subtract B2 from both sides. These are not like terms, so we can't put them together. We're left with 2a divided by h minus B2 is equal to B1. And that is it.